Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May Planning Advisory Committee. I'll now call the meeting to order, and thank you for your attendance. While we get into the agenda, I'll ask if there are any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof, anyone on the committee regarding any of the applications. Seeing none, thank you. And before I ask for approval of the agenda, there is a slight correction. On item 7.3, there was a misprint of the name. I think it's Mark instead of Mike, and so if you want to make that change, or if you're reading the report, you'll see there that was a misprint. So I will now ask for approval of the agenda along with the addition of the correction. Mr. Edison, J.D. Brown, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Could I now have a approval of the minutes of our April the 17th, 2025 meeting, and I would entertain a motion and any questions or comments regarding those minutes or errors that you might have detected or questions. Mover, please. Councillor Kosovas. Mr. Forsyth. Any questions, errors, omissions detected in those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, the public meetings are prescribed under the Planning Act and are conducted as prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended for one zoning bylaw amendment application affecting lands in the Sydney ward, one zoning bylaw amendment application affecting lands in all wards, and one zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Murray ward. The meeting will be conducted in the following manner for each application. First, I will identify each application being considered, and then I will ask planning staff to outline the application being considered, then ask if there are any members of the public who have registered in advance to attend and participate in the meeting, or have any questions or comments regarding each application. If there are no public comments or questions, I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments. Once all committee questions have been addressed, the committee will consider and vote on each application. If you wish to provide comments, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. This committee has been delegated the responsibility to conduct public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. A full report of the meeting's proceedings will be submitted to City Council on Wednesday, June the 18th, 2025. Council will make the decision on each stated application. Anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of Council's decision on each application must submit a written request for notice of Council's decision to the Director of Planning and Development Services. I will now ask the Director of Planning and Development Services please advise the committee on how notice of these meetings were given. Brian, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Notice of the application being considered this evening for a housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw was given in keeping with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by newspaper advertisement on April 24th, 2025. And further, notice of the applications being considered this evening for zoning bylaw amendments were given in keeping with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by first-class mail on April 25th, 2025. And posting of signs on the subject properties on the same date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now proceed with the first public meeting of the evening, and the first application is 7.1, Staff Report 25-035 PD, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application. The owner's Michelle Snaithman. I apologize if I've not said that name properly. Location is south of 85 Factory Road. The file number is D09/S06/25. Ashley, would you like to address this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This rezoning is a condition of consent application B4/25S, which was approved by the Committee of Adjustment on February 13th, 2025. Under the consent application, the Committee of Adjustment approved the severance of a 0.94 hectare lot to create a vacant lot for future development. This application proposes to rezone the conditionally approved severed lot from the rural zone to the rural residential zone. The conditionally approved severed lot would not comply with the minimum lot frontage and area requirements. The conditionally approved retained lot would remain in the rural zone. The building department states no concerns. Quinte Conservation indicated that they have no objection with the rezoning. At this time, there were no comments from the public. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. Do we have anyone in attendance other than the applicant who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in opposition or have general questions regarding this application? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, committee, I would ask your consideration, and as you've heard, the recommendation is to approve, so.
So I'm going to make the motion to approve.
Okay, moved by Councillor Quinte, second by Councillor McHugh. Any further questions or comments?
Just one question.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
So Factory Road has a grade to it from south to north. It's going uphill, and I just wanted to just ask about it, if the grade of the road is of any issue or concern with Public Works and exit and entrance to this address.
Robert, would you like to address that question, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so at this point, no access permit was applied for. However, Public Works has done a cursory review of the sight lines and the grades at this location, and there doesn't appear to be an issue.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so regularly moved and seconded that we approve the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We now move to 7.2, Staff Report 25-036 PD, Housekeeping Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Additional Residential Units. The owner is the City of Quinte West. The location is all wards. The file number is D09/Q10/25. Davina, would you like to give us some information on this, please?
Through the Chair, City Council approved the comprehensive zoning bylaw in 2014, and it is essential to periodically update to reflect new or evolving provincial legislation, amendments to provincial policy, and general housekeeping matters. This ensures that our zoning framework remains current and allows the city to effectively respond to legislative changes and align with broader planning objectives. The proposed amendments in this report address additional residential units, or ARUs, to increase the number of allowance within urban residential properties within a single detached, semi-detached, duplex, or townhouse dwelling on full municipal services from 2 to 3, in addition to the principal dwelling unit, resulting in a total of 4 residential units. These changes come after the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund and other federal funding programs such as the Housing Accelerator Fund, which have required municipalities with populations over 30,000 to implement zoning that permits 4 residential units as of right to be eligible for funding, which is intended to support higher density housing and increase supply within existing urban areas. An official plan amendment will follow and will be brought forward in June's Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and a notice of public meeting for zoning bylaw Housekeeping Amendment 9 was given by the placement of an advertisement in the Community Press newspaper on April 24, 2025. The notice of application and draft bylaw were also posted on the same day to the city's website.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to address any questions in regards to this change? Any opposition? No general questions? Okay, I'm sure this is a work in progress yet, so probably next month there'll be another opportunity if there's more, I guess, pertinent information, we'll put it that way, so.
Is this the one where they cut red tape and add green tape and blue tape and orange tape?
Well, that was to come, that could partially come down this week, but I think maybe Brian may want to, or Kelly will want to talk to that, but I don't think we have all the details on it yet. I know I haven't read too thoroughly into it, but I guess it's a work in progress as always, so.
Yesterday, Mr. Chair, yeah, you're right. There's another new piece of legislation that was introduced on Monday by a number of different ministries. This application or this proposal doesn't directly come from that, but there are other impacts on planning legislation coming out of that new bill. There will be a staff report. There's changes to Development Charges Act, Planning Act, a number of other things, and there will be a staff report coming to council more generally on that change on Monday. But you're right. This This piece of legislation that we're talking about this evening is definitely part of a pattern I think the committee have seen and council have seen over the last couple of years, where the province is either encouraging or specifically mandating that municipalities provide more as of right provisions for higher density development within existing residential areas. We first saw that with additional residential units, and everybody thought that was the world was going to explode when you could do one additional dwelling unit or one accessory unit, and then it went to 2, and then it went to 3, and here we are now. It's at 4. And I think the one comment I would make is that while the imposition of this seems significant, and of course it is, if you look at residential areas that were originally developed with majority single family traditional homes, increasing that intensity and putting additional units does have an impact. But for the very fact that a lot of these residential areas are existing, you have to also counter that with just how many properties will take advantage of this. Remember that this sets a new upper limit. It doesn't impose this requirement on new development, but it gives an upper threshold so that if somebody does have the availability, and of course doing renovations of that sort to increase units doesn't come cheap. So if somebody's in a position to do so, they may be able to take advantage of these policies. That doesn't mean that everybody will do it. So I think you have to counter the potential increase with just how many situations this will be taken advantage of. But it's definitely the direction that we're going in across the province, and probably across, I would say, across the country as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Jardine. One thing that confused me that says it's going to give municipalities the option of lowering development charges. Have they said how we're going to get those development charges back? Or are we going to have to drop the development charges and make them up somewhere else? I'm really not impressed what they've done so far with regards to development charges, and I'd like to see that in the report, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, definitely. Can't answer your question. That's we're as with all municipalities, which seems to be a bit of a theme these days, where new legislation is introduced. They provide a very high level summary of what the changes are, and then all of the guidelines and the details follow. So there's always a path of a number of weeks of everybody trying to figure out what exactly it means. But Councillor O'Neill's right. There are changes there. Proposed changes to Development Charges Act, suggesting that municipalities, that what it might result in is municipalities being able to lower, but at this point in time it's not specific on how that's going to happen, or whether that will be mandated or up to the municipality. So I'll ask you to kind of pause on that. I definitely hear your thoughts, and I'm sure when the staff report comes forward to council, there'll be a more in-depth explanation of what that would look like.
Okay, Councillor Quinte.
Well, first of all, I'm going to move the motion, so I'll move that.
Okay.
But then I do have a question.
Okay, the recommendation is to receive, so it's on the floor. Mr. Edison seconds it. Okay, go ahead.
Just to clarify with Councillor O'Neill and Director Jardine's conversation, I believe the development charges that you were speaking to are in relation to the letter we received on Monday and not to this bylaw that we're talking about, just to clarify.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yep.
Thanks. And so with this bylaw, I'm a homeowner and I live in Sydney Ward, and I have a property that's on municipal water, but we have a septic tank. So I could borrow Councillor Ellier's tractor, bulldoze my house, and build a fourplex as long as I meet the requirements for lot size and septic and dimensions for my property and from the neighboring property.
Through Mr. Chair, partly, but not entirely. So in that situation, because you're on split services, you have your municipal water but private septic, that would be a reduced number of units. So in a rural setting, so properties served by individual septic, would have the ability to do 2 additional dwelling units for a total of 3, not 4. That's only within an urban setting with full municipal services. In addition, in a rural setting, obviously, as you suggested yourself, you would have to have enough area to be able to satisfy the septic requirements for additional dwelling units. But I would also add as well, you wouldn't necessarily have to demolish your existing home. You can add additional units to your existing home. So this is not always intended as being a redevelopment opportunity. It can be a situation where somebody has a single family home and they wish to put in, just as has always happened but under different terminology, could put in an accessory unit in the basement or upstairs for a family member to rent out, something like that. All that's really changed with this legislation is now instead of doing 1, you can do 2 additional in the rural setting and 3 additional in an urban setting.
So now I have to buy Councillor O'Neill's house and turn it into a 4-unit home. Because Councillor O'Neill lives in Trenton Ward and he has water and wastewater services.
I can't speak for Councillor O'Neill in this negotiation here, but certainly as far as it being in an urban setting, yes, 4 units would be your upper limit. Yep.
Yeah, because with this change, it's like you all have already mentioned, the province of Ontario wants to give options to build more homes, and this is leading directly to that. So if you're on full services, we're going to be listening to the people if they bring their applications forward, because we are now just changing this bylaw. And then once this gets passed by council at the next council meeting, then this will become your new process, and your team is going to be adjusting accordingly. Because now we have that new process where people can inquire pre-consultation. And so you're constantly growing your system with all the changes that keeps happening to your team and the rules and how they apply. Correct? All right, so everybody get your applications ready. We're waiting. Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee in this regard? Like I said, I know we'll be getting a report back and it's a work in progress, so we'll be staying tuned, I'm sure. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's moved and seconded that we receive the information. All in favor? Carried, thank you. We now move to staff report, or 7.3, staff report 25-037 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is Mark and Patricia Kupras. The location is 576 2nd Dug Hill Road. The file number is D09/M08/25. Ashley, would you also like to address this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This rezoning is a condition of consent application B12/25M, which was approved by the Committee of Adjustment on March 13th, 2025. Under the consent application, the Committee of Adjustment approved the severance of a 1.88 hectare lot to create a vacant lot for future development. The purpose of the application is to rezone the conditionally approved severed lot from the development zone to the rural residential holding zone. The holding provision delays development until certain conditions have been met. In this case, both a noise study and an archaeological study are to be completed to the satisfaction of planning staff. The conditionally approved retained lot would be rezoned from the development zone to the rural residential exception 93 zone. This zone would include special provisions to recognize the reduced lot frontage for the conditionally approved retained lot. The building department states no concerns. Comments received from CPKC Rail dated April 14th, 2025 indicate that they have no objections. However, they would like to be included on all future blasting and development applications surrounding the subject site. One homeowner voiced concern about the intended use of the severed and retained lots as well as the tree clearing. The conditionally approved severed lot will remain vacant for now. Future development, such as a single detached dwelling, would require additional supporting studies as mentioned. Until municipal services reach the area, only a single detached dwelling would likely be permitted. It would be serviced by well and septic. The conditionally approved retained lot would still have the existing detached dwelling. It would be rezoned to the rural residential zone to recognize that it does not have municipal services despite being within the urban boundary. The City of Quinte West does not have a tree clearing bylaw. Therefore, there are no permits required for tree removal activities. There have been no submitted requests for construction on the severed lot at this time. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. Do we have anyone in attendance other than the applicant who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in opposition or have general questions? Please come forward, state your name and address, one at a time, and we'll be pleased to listen to your concerns. State your name and address, please, for us.
Sure. My name is Tim Miller. I live currently at 582 2nd Dug Hill Road, which is Part 2 lot that you can see on the map there. I guess what my concerns would be is obviously being, right there in front of one of these properties and the other, close to, like, adjacent to my neighbor. What is the future possibility of construction on this? Because my understanding is our rating can include a combination, I guess, of residential and an operated business. So I just want to try to understand what that, what does that mean? Is there a possibility of, be it the severed lot or the retained lot, even being broken up into further plots to have multiple homes in there?
Okay. Well, I think I'll let staff address that question, and then we'll move from there.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So, I think the first thing just to reinforce what Ashley said in our presentation is that while it's being zoned to a rural residential zone, it also has that holding zone. So the important part of that is that no construction can happen on the site without a further zoning amendment. So there would be a recirculation of an application. You would get notified if there was going to be any development on the site. So that's the first thing to say. As far as what a rural residential zone would permit, you're correct, it would permit one residential unit, potentially with accessory dwelling units that we just talked about in that previous report. As far as a business goes, really it's quite limited there. You are allowed to do kind of home occupation type businesses. That's usually a business that happens within your home. It doesn't look or feel any different from a residential property. So very often somebody that's doing like hairdressing or accounting work or something like that. So there are some provisions.
So it wouldn't be anything like a commercial type?
No, that would need a full rezoning application, wouldn't fit with the planning policy, and it would likely be something that the city wouldn't support. Going further, as Ashley mentioned, while this property is challenging to develop, it is located within the urban boundary. But again, if there was going to be a higher scale of development ever on the site, either on the retained or the severed piece, that would require further planning applications. It would also mean, more specifically, that services would be brought to the site, because it would have to be then serviced by municipal water, municipal sewer. Obviously, a full access for a subdivision or something in from that road would be challenging as well. So that all of those factors are going to limit how much development you would see. But the critical thing is that they would all require additional planning applications, and there would be further notification.
Oh, okay, so there's still another opportunity to have my voice heard.
Absolutely. As it stands right now, really all that's happening is that this is recognising the separation of land. This is legalising, if you like, the severance application under zoning, but it doesn't permit any development on the site. Any future development would require a reapplication, and you would be notified.
Oh, okay, and just to say it out loud, like at this point in time, there's not any expected change with the properties as they are right now?
Not based on this approval, no.
Okay, I think that answers my question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tim, I think you had your hand, and now I'll get you, Ralph.
Carrying on with the Tim theme, Tim Larry, 34 Liberty Crescent. My property backs onto the forested portion of that lot. At the Committee of the Adjustment, myself and a number of other residents came to speak about the concern about the development of that property, and thank you. I think you've answered much of the concerns regarding what is permitted at this current time. I guess the other question that hasn't been addressed this evening but was asked at the previous meeting, the concerns regarding the access to the property, given the fact that Second Doug Hill is quite a steep grade to it, the safety concerns, and I see that driving down there, there's been some cutting of the forested land, for lack of a better term, to, I think, address a different access point. But has Public Works looked at this in terms of the safety component? Because as we know, that particular stretch of land has become, or road has become very, very busy with the development of Walmart and other areas at the west end of town. And I think that's a critical thing for future development of the property, because if there are school buses or trucks that are across into the pit, it does present an issue provided the current structure of that road. So thank you for the first part, answering the number of dwellings that are permitted potentially and the process that goes through for that. So I thank you for that. But I would like to find out the answer to the second part of that question.
Robert, would you like to address that as far as the application and sight lines and what have you, please?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Public Works has reviewed the sight lines. During the clearance consent application, a new access permit was granted. And so the way that works is we have a bunch of standards, and they're very specific measurements off the center line of the road into where a car would, a potential driveway would be leaving. And then we measure how far you can see at a very specific elevation. In this particular case, the standard is 70 meters, and the proposed location for the severed lot, the driveway, is 93 meters worth of sight lines. So in this case, the severed has an excess in sight lines, or it exceeds the minimum standards.
Sounds good in theory, but we all know in practicality that road is a bugger, especially with transport trucks that can't read.
Well, we hope there's none going to be going down there, because we know what that low bridge ends up with the trucks, so.
Well, that'll just make it easier for them to get in and out, because the road will be blocked.
Well, for a bit, that's a short time. Mr. Leone,
I'm the buyer of that property on the Second Doug Hill Road.
if you want to maybe give your name for the record, please.
My name is Ralph Leone. Live on 17 Golden Russet Court here in Trenton, which is adjacent to this property. I've lived in Trenton all my life, born and raised here, and I don't understand the concerns where Mr. Leary is talking about. It was an apple orchard. Like, that was all trees in that area. Second Doug Hill Road, yes, it's become busy, but it's also a 5-acre piece of property. I'm not saying never, never, but today there's no development scheduled for that property. Down the road, who knows? But Second Doug Hill Road, as you were well aware of, there's all kinds of development on Second Doug Hill Road. And you can go back 20, 30 years ago, they were all trees. So I don't know where everybody's coming from here. Now, across the road where Mr. Miller's talking about, there's a gravel pit or a sand pit. You know, trucks coming in and out of there all the time, and he's farther down the road. At some point in time, that gravel pit is going to be turned into a subdivision. The land's never going to sit idle all this time. So I don't understand the big concerns. But anyway, at this point in time, there's no development scheduled other than my own parking spot back there.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Leone further? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It'll be recorded in the minutes. Anyone else like to come forward and ask any question? Yes? Sure.
You are right about the property across the street, but when I moved here 2.5, 3 years ago, That was an inactive lot. Nobody knew anything about it. And when I asked the real estate agent about it, they indicated that, yeah, as far as they know, there's nothing going on there. So it's only really within the last year and a half that they've moved in and they've started to utilize that location, and it certainly is a commercialized type business setting, right? So if I'd have known that was there, I probably wouldn't have bought the property in the first place. So, you know, I hear what he's saying, but from my perspective, I moved here to this property because this is where I was going to retire. Now everything's changing. So as much as he's upset about trying to invest in something and make a buck at it, I get it, but I've also got my perspective too.
Yeah.
What's the effect going to be on my property value and resale, and et cetera?
Well, we have to understand that abutting properties, property owners have rights, and I know we get confronted all the time with people that have bought a property and then they don't want the elements to change around them, and I can understand that, but you know, under our rule of law in the province, another property owner, if they comply and conform, they are allowed to do certain things. So we as a committee, whether it's Committee of Adjustment or this one, our planning department gives us the information that whether we can apply the rules fairly on both sides, and then we come up with a decision, which we're coming up with another one tonight in the second phase after the Committee of Adjustments decision. So. But we understand your concerns.
Hey, just trying to voice it, and just, you know, everyone's got a point.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, I see Patricia Cooper, the applicant, is on. Would you like to make any comments at this time? I know you're here virtually and on the phone.
I actually don't have any comments at this point. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, well, thank you for your participation and being here in your attendance. Okay, are there any further questions regarding this? If not, I'm going to ask the committee to consider the recommendation, which is to approve, or have any questions or any further comment. Go around the table. Mr. Edison? Move the application, recommendation, okay. Mr. Brown, second. Any further comment or questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Your comments regarding the applications and staff reports have been recorded and will be forwarded to the members of council together with the minutes of this meeting. Council will make a decision to approve or refuse each stated application at the regularly scheduled council meeting of Wednesday, June the 18th, 2025. We'll now move to item 8, which is public input. Is there any other items or concerns you'd like to bring forward? Please do so at this time. Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to item 9, presentations. We have none. Item 10, delegations, none this evening, and no decision items this evening. We now move into item 12, printed information. We have 12.1, monthly planning reports. A, zoning bylaw and official plan amendment tracking year to date. And item B, the building department report, monthly April 2025 and year to date January to April 2025. And then I guess we could do the 12.2 all in one motion, I would presume.
Good.
And it'll kind of simplify it instead of making two. So if you would like to consider the site plan minutes, the regular meeting of February the 12th and also the special meeting of March the 10th, I would include then in the motion of the monthly plan reports. Moved by Councilor McHugh, seconder. Mr. Forsyth, any further questions regarding any of those items and minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We have no printed, non-printed information. Go around the table, request for information. Ms. Simmons? No? Mr. Brown? Mr. Forsyth?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Neill? Vice Chairman Quinte?
Yeah, again, here we are talking about our city trying to grow. Province of Ontario has been saying for years they want more housing, and the recent federal election, it was mentioned in all political parties about housing. So I'm sure there's going to be more changes coming. So I hear what you're saying, that you asked your real estate agent, but you might have wanted to ask our planning department about some of the properties around, around you. A real estate agent, professionals, wanting to sell houses, and the planning department is wanting to plan things out according to rules and regulations laid out by the province of Ontario and the municipal council, with giving direction as to where are we going to grow and how are we going to grow, and hopefully when. Unfortunately, the when part seems to move around a lot because it always involves lots of money, and we were even talking about development charges earlier this evening, which aren't on tonight's agenda at all, but certainly are a big part of our city growing, and it's a fun task. Anyhow, I just wanted to make a comment on that, and we have many approved subdivisions, and I hope we can build houses and people can buy them and move in. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McHugh? Councillor Curd? Councillor Kosovas? Mr. Edison, you get the last kick at the can here. Oh, I thought you might have a lengthy address, that's why I left you to the end. The best for last. There you go.
Yeah, to the golf course.
Any further comments from staff about any unannounced things other than that we already talked about this week's delivery, I guess, of some new rules and regulations that could be coming down, and as I said, I'm sure they're a work in progress yet, so I'll leave it to you to keep us informed when it's the appropriate time.
Yeah, to Mr. Chair, yeah, nothing other than that announcement. One thing I would say, I think, looking through some of the changes, and this has kind of been the case on other legislation changes that have come down from the province over the last year, it feels very much as though, where we're all impacted by changes, very much when it comes to process changes, it was mentioned at the start of the meeting about red tape and blue tape and green tape and stuff, and what seems to be coming out of this is that and this is really just my opinion, but their focus is really on some of the larger, more urban municipalities where indeed planning applications take significantly longer to go through the process and come to a point of realization. There's multiple points for appeal and objection and so forth. And I think what they're trying to do is close that down. And the reason I say that is that some of the changes, particularly like in this legislation that was just announced on Monday, the changes to the Planning Act, while we will be we will have to abide by the changes, really they will not impact the way in which we do our job. So for an example, what they're saying is that municipalities will have to stick to the range of supporting documents that they request from a developer to the list that's within our official plan, and not effectively make up new studies just to ask for more studies. We don't do that. The studies that we require for a subdivision are the ones that you would expect, related to servicing, related to engineering, environmental assessments, all of that type of thing. I do not see those disappearing. I think it's some of the other larger municipalities. I know from my experience in working in City of Ottawa, the range of supporting documents that the city would ask for to support, for instance, a subdivision, way exceeds what we would ever ask for. And I think that's where they're placing their attention. They're trying to close that loop and make sure everybody's reasonable with what they're requesting. So at the end of the day, I don't see it changing much about the processes that we have. And again, we get through planning applications, even though developers would probably say I'm wrong. We get through them very, very quickly in comparison to the bigger picture. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. It's good news to hear, and we'll keep up the good work. I'd like to thank engineering for your attendance tonight and your input, please. And it's always well thought out and your homework is done, so we can answer the right questions here for folks. Appreciate that. Okay, we have no notices motion that I've seen. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Thursday, June the 19th at 6 p.m., same location as far as I know. So without further ado, our next big decision is I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Edison. Ms. Simmons. We'll go with both ends of the table here. Any objection to that? If not, all in favor? Carried, and I now adjourn the meeting, and thanks for your attendance, and have a good evening and a good long weekend, everyone. A safe long weekend, too.